Hi guys, this is going to be the first video of the final homework assignment, which is assignment 4. And this week, and in this series of videos, you're going to get all of the instructions you need to complete this. So you'll have 2 weeks to complete this, as well as assignment 3, which is the residential model. And next week, I'm just going to show you some more advanced techniques, none of which you have to use in your final models, but techniques that I think will bring your models to the next level. And for those of you that are ready and want to move on and try some of those, feel free to use them. So let's get started with the final homework, which is assignment 4. And this is going to be a commercial model using a plan and 2 elevations that were generated in AutoCAD. So you saw the first 2 videos for this week. Those were basically for information only, and I went over how one would create their plans and get everything ready to bring it into SketchUp Pro. But you'll see attached, or right after this video, you'll see the model for this week. And go ahead and just download that and open it up, and it should look just like this. So when you open up your model, what you're going to see is you're going to see a plan that's already been imported. And if you select that plan, and it's easiest when you have a plan like this to do the click and drag method, because it's hard if you're trying to click on it. Sometimes you don't actually, you won't actually click on it because you're clicking on the background. So go ahead and click on it and see that it is all connected as one. What we're going to do, the very first thing we're going to do is we're going to put these plans on their own layers. So before we do that though, I will always recommend making a slab. So I'm going to hit Shift R to get my rectangle going. And just make a slab big enough that it covers all the space below your plan, so that when you're zooming in and out, it's a lot easier to control your zoom. So I'm going to go ahead and group that, double click to open it up, and P to push pull, and close it down. So this is just going to be the slab upon which I'm working. All right, so now what I want to do is I want to put these 3 different entities onto their own layers. And what I have to do first thing is I have to explode this, because this is a plan with 2 elevations and they're all connected as one group, so it's going to be really hard for me to move them separately if they are all in one group. So what I have to do is right click and explode, and that's going to take just a few seconds. So now that it's exploded, I'm going to get myself a nice view on top where I can use my select method, where I use the left to right dragging selection, so that I'm only selecting what's inside this box. So I'm going to select the first elevation or section, and I'm going to group it. So I just hit my G button because I've made that as a shortcut. So I'm going to group that. I'm going to do the same thing here. I'm going to select just the elevation or the section, and I'm going to group it. And then I can select the plan. So now that I've got the 2 other ones grouped, I'm just grouping the plan. And what this gives me now is 3 separate pieces that I can move around. All right, so step 1 is good. Now what we want to do is we want to make these on their own layer. So there's 2 steps to that. I'm going to first open Window, Layers. And you can see here, it's going to look slightly different on the PC, but I believe the buttons are exactly the same. All I have right now is a layer 0. If I had brought this in from a CAD file that had a lot of layers in it, I probably would have brought all those layers in with me, but I've cleaned this up so that we're just looking at layer 0. To add a layer, you click on the plus symbol, and it's going to give you the option of naming it. So I like to, as a rule, I like to always keep my layers in all caps so that I know I've named them. So I'm going to call the first layer Plan, enter. I'm going to add another layer and call it Elevation 1, enter. And I'm going to add another one and call it Elevation or Section, whichever you prefer. It's actually probably better if I put Section, but I've already started this. So let's just go ahead and say Elevation 2. So I've got elevation 1, 2, and plan. Now, what that has done is that has given me, I'm going to leave this window up, but that's given me all the new layers that I want to use, but I haven't actually put anything on a new layer yet. To put something onto a new layer, I have to actually Open up another window, which is Window, Entity Info. Click on that. Okay. We're going to talk a little bit more about entity info in the next video. But what we do know from the get-go is that entity info is going to tell me exactly what layer everything is on. So as I click on the different layers, or I'm sorry, as I click on the different groups, it's telling me that they're all on layer 0. If I click on this to expand it a little more, I can see that it's going to also tell me whether or not these things cast shadows, whether they receive shadows, whether they're locked, whether they're hidden. Right now they're neither hidden nor locked, so those aren't checked. So I'm going to move this plan onto the plan layer. I'm going to move this elevation here onto elevation 1. And I'm going to move the second elevation, the longer one, onto elevation 2. What this allows me to do is this allows me to actually turn off these layers one at a time by clicking on whether or not they're visible. I almost never use the color association, so I wouldn't really worry about that. This is kind of just an extra feature that you can use if you want to really get into it, but I don't recommend you have to worry about that yet. So the nice thing about this is that I can start putting things onto layers that I want to be able to turn off and on without having to actually select and hide them. And the reason I do this with plans is that plans and elevations are something that I usually want to keep in my model just in case if I want to keep building or if I want to verify something or if I want to import a new plan and replace it and match it to a line. But I don't want to always have to hide it because plans are notoriously tricky and difficult to select, but they're also something that I don't want to accidentally delete. So I like to keep them on their own layers so that I can turn them off and on. So for the first part of this homework, simply take this entire plan with the elevations included, explode it, and then group your individual plan and your 2 elevations, make 3 new layers, 2 of which will be called elevation 1 and 2, and 1 of which will be called plan. And then open up your entity info, which can be found under window. Both of these are windows that you open and close. So you're going to find layers and windows, and entity info under the window tab. So move them to the correct layers, and then you're good to go for the first part of the homework.